I woke up today in New York. I did Errol and the Bad Guy at the studios at ESPN, got in a car, and drove to Connecticut. That's about a 3.5-hour drive. So, you're in the back, you're a little bored. It's a good chance to catch up on emails and phone calls and just anything you could do on your phone with a little solidarity. But my wife had sent me a link to the state of Washington. Now, understand, I live in Oregon. Oregon and Washington geographically touch each other. The two states touch. Washington State directed executive order by the governor, invoked no events can take place in Washington. And they defined events as anything that brings 250 people or greater together. Now, I fully suspect that Oregon is going to follow suit on that, which does have to do with Submission Underground that is coming up in 2 weeks. We've already notified all of the athletes that show will go on. And if the fans get banned, we will refund the tickets. But the competition and the matches and the cameras and the lights are going to be set up, and we're going to figure that thing out and move forward. But as you take that in mind, and you're starting to hear that they're doing that with the NCAA, you're starting to hear of some professional sports teams that are doing that. I'm a wrestling fan. The wrestling NCAA championships are going to take place in Minnesota. Minnesota has now put out that the event will go on, but 0 ticket holders will be allowed admission. So they're going to bring in all the teams, all the wrestlers, set up all the mats. They're going to wrestle in a great, big, beautiful stadium in front of nobody. I don't have a huge problem with that. I mean, whoever the decision makers are that have a better understanding than all of us, and who are just trying to keep people safe, okay. I mean, that sounds reasonable, right? I'm just trying to think of how far does this go with competition, because they've even talked about, and this is kind of early in my opinion, I'm talking about the Olympic Games. That kicks off in what, August? They're already talking about canceling the Olympic Games, which I would sincerely hope that they don't do on a personal level. I just know some people who were members of the 1980 Olympic team. Made the team, lived the dream, all the sacrifices. President Carter calls a boycott, nobody got to compete. So those guys are still drunks and drug addicts to this day, never fully recovered. So I will just tell you, I really hope that doesn't happen to these athletes. But on a broader stroke and a broader conversation, Dana was asked about this at press conference, at the press conference last week. And Dana emphatically said, we're going to keep our eye on this and we're going to do everything responsible. We are not canceling the event. Doing everything right and doing everything responsible is going to have to work hand in hand in conjunction with the idea that we are not canceling an event. And I believe him. He was very strong when he said it. Very, very simple. I'm quoting into quote, but he was strong when he said it. It does make you wonder, though, okay, so would ultimately MMA just be conducted similar to how they're about to hold and host the NCAA Division I Wrestling Championships, which is you bring in all the athletes and you keep all the spectators out. You bring in a referee and a whistle and you let this thing go. I don't see any reason why not. I really don't see any reason why not. I will tell you right now, that is exactly what we will do with Submission Underground. 100%. Those matches are going to take place. The divisions are going to continue and move forward. Let's say that happened in New York, which would mean Tony and Khabib. What do you do then? I don't have the answer for you. The first thing I would assume is, let's say you were going to follow this NCAA ideal and model, that the competition lives on, the crowd just stays at home. Okay, that's fine. ESPN's covering it. A lot of people are going to miss out on a good trip, but they will get to see the action. And a lot of those are relatives, family members, aunts, uncle, cousins, brothers, sisters. They'll be able to at least watch the action. So let's say that New York bans it. You can't go to the Barclays Center. Does the UFC still hold that fight? According to Dana, yes, the event will go on. Okay, I believe that. Now, does the UFC still hold that event at the Barclays Center? Would there be any reason to have a $100,000 building on a 24-hour lease to come in and do a build-out just to set the cameras up and hold the event? Or do you just move the show to the Apex? And if you got to move the show to the Apex, I just pointed out Tony versus Khabib for fun, because I know that's a big pay-per-view, big fight that you guys are looking forward to, but why would it end there? I mean, how long is this ban going to be a thing? How long are we all going to be dealing with it? I don't think any of us have that answer. But if you do subscribe to the idea that the show is going to go on, it would make things really easy to just have a different venue, which already happens to be built in the backyard, which happens to be called the Apex. And then you start bringing in and having the content. I mean, from the Ultimate Fighters that have done great right out of there, the Dana White Contender Series, which has done great fighting right out of there. They've never tested bringing in somebody of this level, a Tony Ferguson versus a Khabib. That's never been tested. In many ways, it could absolutely change the business model of mixed martial arts. I think that you fans would be stunned if you realized how little a promoter counts on a live gate. And I know when they come to press conferences, they love to disclose the numbers of the live gate and how many people were in attendance and drop some of these numbers and then hint out pay-per-views to the masses. I will just tell you as a fellow promoter, we will go out of our way to make sure to give you those numbers as a way of making you think that those are the only numbers. That part I will share with you in this video. It would be very interesting though, right? You take a company like the UFC that does international business, has roughly a $10 million setup cost, brings in a gate that doesn't even quite cover the setup cost. I mean, it would just be very interesting to see if we get to this place, bringing in pay-per-view level quality fights, taking some of that energy and some of that live audience and support out of it, which would be unusual, but we're in experimental phase. I don't know that any of us know what's going to happen. There would be something to see, very much so, if you played a Super Bowl in absolute silence. Is that something you want to see 10 and 11 and 12 times in a season? I don't know. I'm not even giving you a prediction. I am just sharing for you. I mean, just imagine some of the great sporting events that could happen. Just happened. Tyson Fury versus Wilder. Imagine they walk out there into that arena to box and nobody's there. Would Wilder have worn the costume if nobody was there? Would Fury have serenaded the crowd? Does it make for a worse experience, or does it make for something very unique that you want to make sure that you stop and see? I'm proposing for you, if this experiment goes through, if some pay-per-views get pulled because of this crowd issue, and those matches take place in front of the lights and the camera at the Apex, and ESPN is still there to distribute, you could literally, if you had success in that, and again, it's an experiment, but if you had success, you could literally open everybody in leadership's eyes to something, realize there's some fat on the bone that traveling around the world may not be totally necessary. There is many ways this plays out that would revolutionize the sport.